What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data points for this upcoming week, you have on Tuesday, money supply. Normally, that's not that big of a deal, but given the circumstances that has been occurring in the broader market, I feel like a lot of institutions are really going to be paying attention to that one. Aside from that, though, there is a ton of Fed speakers throughout the week, so that could in among itself cause some volatility. And then to cap off the week on Friday, you have the Michigan consumer sentiment. And even just looking right here, the last 5 reports have all prompted a crazy pullback in the broader market. So kind of just stay tuned for that. Aside from that, though, it is going to be tariffs. And so there is a certain level of optimism that there is going to be some deal coming sooner rather than later between China and the States. And one thing that did happen pretty much midway through of last week was you didn't see the rising bonds, the yields. So insinuating China stopped selling. So maybe that is kind of a positive thing, that there's some good negotiations occurring, because even though it wasn't officially confirmed, I think just the consensus is that China was dumping a lot of their bonds, causing the yields to go higher to indirectly damage the States. So if we do come to some sort of agreement as far as tariffs, the market is going to love that. So that's going to be a big one to really pay attention to. And then aside from all of that fun stuff, you have earnings. Big one for the EV sector is Tesla. Even though over the last little bit, whatever has happened to Tesla, it's been its own problem. So if negatives have really plagued Tesla, other EVs actually do go up. So maybe that could be something that does occur, but nonetheless, though, that is coming out Tuesday after hours. And then just generally speaking, a lot of companies, big companies, unveiling their earnings, them giving future guidance that could, again, kind of influence the broader market. But so far, surprisingly enough, earnings season, you haven't seen that much negativity. A lot of companies have come out and said that, yeah, we're going to be cautiously watching the kind of consumers because of the tariffs, but we're right now just watching. We're not really doing anything. We're forecasting downgrades. So I think all in all, market is holding up fairly well. But specific to Lucid, though, you do have these things. So a couple pop-ups, looks like the Amsterdam Motor Show 2025, and that's pretty much it. So nothing really crazy, no fireside chats or anything along those lines. So let me know your general viewpoint on that. One thing I do want to bring up that's relatively new information, Lucid Oasis posted this on social media. So it looks like it was just a screenshot of Mark from LinkedIn, and ultimately he kind of goes over a lot of the recent reviews of the Gravity, which seems to be fairly good. I myself don't really pay attention to those all that much because, again, I think looking back to 2022, 2023, there was a lot of good reviews for the Air, but that didn't really help the stock price all that much. So I don't really pay attention to the Gravity reviews as much as I probably should. But one thing that he does bring up, though, is the Lucid Gravity Dream Edition, and that they aren't really posting it on their website, but if you're interested, you can kind of reach out. So that's kind of a good thing. Nice, hopefully some much needed additional revenue associated to that. The only thing that I wanted to bring up is the fact that they are, despite the tariff kind of scenario, they are maintaining the prices until the end of May. So Ford did the same type of kind of scenario. They, unfortunately, I did believe on Friday, they reverted back to saying that if the tariffs do stick until whatever X period, they will be forced to kind of raise rates, no different than Lucid. So again, just more of an FYI. But going into this upcoming week, 23.13% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 281.12 million shares. Shorts did return for a little bit. So it went from 25% short interest to where it is now, but still nothing overly crazy. So I think they are just waiting for something. What is going to happen in the broader market? Are we going to really just move higher, potentially with tariffs, kind of reduction in tariffs, or are we going to end up into a full-on blown tariff war with China? And how would the market kind of react to that? You have Trump pretty much every single day. I even saw on Saturday him tweet saying that like Powell needs to go and Powell's an idiot, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Some of you might agree, some of you might not, but it's kind of comical just to see that back and forth. But nonetheless, shorts will probably this week be somewhat stagnant. Again, that's kind of how they have been. They're just waiting for the broader market. And I feel like a lot of institutions as well are doing the exact same thing. But aside from that, looking here at the open interest, with it closing above that $2 strike price on Friday, that does mean 17,000 in the money options. So market makers might have to cover some. You did see some abnormal transactions after hours on the Friday, so that could be some institutions already. But I think aside from that, though, you might see a little bit bump of the stock price come Monday as market makers cover some of that. Looking forward into this upcoming week, you're not really seeing any crazy walls, so you might not see any crazy manipulation coming from shorts. On a side note, what I mean by that is market makers and shorts kind of have a financial interest in suppressing stocks. Sometimes it happens with Lucid. If it gets close to a strike price come Friday, then you see shorts just try to suppress it. But that's if there is strong walls, such as 29,000 in open interest or 34 and so forth. But looking forward into this week, there's only 6,000 at that 250, 9,000 at that 3. So nothing overly something that shorts will kind of die over, if that makes sense. But looking into this week with it at $2.38 where it closed on Thursday, right above this pivot point, so trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 233 is going to be a strong support, just watch for that. Flip side, 255 is going to be the next strong target / resistance, and there hasn't been any new ratings, nothing along those lines. If let's say Tesla comes out very doom and gloomish, you might see some negative ratings roll over into Lucid, but still I think we might not hear anything from them. I've been really monitoring as well to see if there's any changes to the forecast, and nothing so far. So maybe leading into their upcoming earnings, you might see some analysts change their earnings per share or revenue, but I'll continue to monitor that just to see if there is any changes. But on the actual chart itself, if we kind of pop over here, so ultimately right now it did close slightly below that ALMA. So $2.40 will be a key point for it to really get over, as well as 248. That is the 50-day moving average. So Lucid did actually show some signs that it wanted to break out right here. And so 5 consecutive days just flirting and bouncing off of that 50-day moving average. Regrettably, it did get smacked down and consolidated. So you might see if there's some tariff optimism, then you could see a nice retest of that. And potentially, again, if it does get over that, then usually that does result in like a 30% swing, but it needs to get over that and stay above that for 2 consecutive days. And that seems to be something that Lucid is struggling with over the last several weeks. But if it is able to get above that, then $2.60 is going to be that 100-day moving average. So kind of just stay tuned for a lot of that. But I think just the market is somewhat holding its breath just on what is truly coming. And like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, the money supply coming out on Tuesday could be a little bit more of a precursor on what the Feds are truly thinking, because typically if they are increasing the money supply, they might be worried about inflation and many other things, and they have been really increasing quite a lot, as you can kind of see from this chart. So all in all, I'm cautiously optimistic about this week. So I do feel for this upcoming week, it'll trade between this R2 and this R1 unless there's some negativity from tariffs or something along those lines. But 269 and 255 between that range is where I feel it might most likely land. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Hopefully everyone had a good long weekend. One final thing, if you're looking for some kick-ass buy signals, pop over to my Patreon, link in the description below and also the comments. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.